With us now is CTV News U.S. political analyst Eric Ham. Eric, good to have you back once again, this time as we kind of take a step away from the here and now and look ahead to next year. What are the political stakes for Donald Trump when it comes to those negotiations that are expected, or the renewal, the re-examination of the Canada-U.S.-Mexico trade deal?
You know, so many people, of course, are looking ahead to the midterm elections, but there are going to be so many political landmines for this administration to have to deal with even before we get to November. And perhaps I think the biggest is going to be what will take place with those negotiations over Kuzma, because we know already the president has signaled that he could and perhaps likely will walk away from this massive trade deal. And that's going to have enormous economic implications, not only for the United States, but for Canada as well. And certainly, given the cooling economy right now, the jobs outlook in terms of rising inflation and unemployment, those and what the president does on that trade agreement will certainly have a tremendous impact on all of that. And what the president does will have tremendous meaning for the global outlook as well.
The conversation surrounding this deal, Eric, has become so important here in Canada, of course, but do we have any signals on what it is that could potentially make Trump walk away from this?
Well, it's his own words, and what we've heard specifically and directly from his U.S. trade representative back in November, when public meetings began in earnest here in the United States. And of course, the administration was hearing from a number of key individuals and organizations as it relates to Kuzma. What we kept hearing over and over, even as industry and academics and others were singing the praises of this regional free trade agreement, it was the administration itself that continued to say that they believe Canada was giving the United States a raw deal, and the president could very well walk away. Now, all of this could be about negotiating tactics. We know Donald Trump is very good at trying to set the stage for that. But nevertheless, given how the president has talked about Canada, and more importantly, how he's acted, again, this is very much, I think, a very real concern.
All right, so from negotiating tactics now to military action, Eric, and when we look at what's happened recently, you know, the tankers in Venezuela, the presence in Greenland, I mean, these are big military moves. What could they signal for next year?
Yeah, and I think this is something that Canada also should be deeply worried about. Just recently, we have seen missile strikes in Nigeria. The president has named an envoy to actually negotiate Greenland becoming part of the United States. And when Donald Trump came into office, he made clear that he would be willing to use what he called economic force to actually take Canada as well. And so when you look at the military aggression in Venezuela, Canada has an enormous amount of vast natural resources. And that is what the play is for Donald Trump, and his ambitions to bring Canada under U.S. sovereignty has not waned at all this year. In fact, when you look at the moves that we're seeing in places like Greenland, Venezuela, Nigeria, I think that only puts a bigger target on Canada. And I think how the president deals with Kuzma also is going to play massively in his belief and his thinking and his ambitions that Canada should be part of the United States.
Which is notable, Eric, that that's still very much on the radar, because in Canada, of course, the reaction to the entire 51st state suggestion conversation has been everything from, you know, laughing it off as a joke to that very serious message of Canada is not for sale. But this is still very much in Trump's sights.
Absolutely, it is. And it hasn't gone away, which is surprising, because oftentimes when Donald Trump says things like this, wanting Greenland, oftentimes we see it as bluster, that this is the president being just a master showman. But when you look at actions, Canada is still the only G7 nation that does not have a free trade agreement with the United States, save for Kuzma. The president continues to see tariffs as a really good thing, even though they're debilitating both for the U.S. and Canadian economy. And more importantly, we're talking about more than a century of friendship, alliance, and partnership. And Donald Trump has already attempted in every way imaginable to blow that up. And the reason, of course, is the president believes that he can weaken Canada, and in doing so, make it that much easier for the United States to overtake the nation.
Well, before we let you go, Eric, on that note, how are tariffs going for President Trump around the rest of the world? Because we knew that at one time this was very much not just a Canada conversation.
That's right. The president, it's been basically the U.S. versus the world, as the United States has placed massive tariffs on all nations across the globe. And that is going to be, again, another sticky issue for the president in 2026, as the Supreme Court is expected to rule once again on tariffs. And this has been Donald Trump's signature economic policy. And the Supreme Court's decision will be crucial because it will ultimately determine where the power to implement tariffs lies, either with the executive branch squarely in Donald Trump's hands or with Congress. And that will certainly shape CUSMA, relations with Canada, and more importantly, what happens with those tariffs.
CTV News U.S. political analyst Eric Ham. Eric, a great conversation as always. Thank you once again.
You bet. Thank you.